Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta, and I'm very pleased to say from a very clear day in Delhi.
Yeah, we've had amazing air, which is
AQI
bad air.
is merely bad these days. It's not
It's
terrible.
just 90. It's just bad
It's
for people with
always
breathing
poor.
issues.
But the sun is out, so it's a Delhi winter like I remember when I was young. We are recording this podcast at 3:37 in the afternoon on the 15th of December, which is a Thursday. Things may have changed by the time you hear this, which is a line I've copied from BBC podcasts because things keep changing from, the kind of thing they're reporting. So today we have on the panel in office Raman Kirpal,
Hi.
Mehraj D Lone,
Hello.
Manisha Pande,
Hello.
and joining us on the phone line from Delhi is Nirupama Subramanian. Hi, Nirupama.
Hi, this is small correction. I'm joining you from Chennai,
Oh, you're
and
from-
the air is really
Oh.
clear here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right after the cyclone, basically.
Yes,
Must be a clear day
see. Okay,
after the
okay.
storm.
Okay. Chalo, good. We'll have the competition later. But I will say, I think Delhi has more livable days in a year than Chennai. You got to agree to that, Nirupama.
no, but as you said, we'll keep the competition for later.
No, but I must tell you one story before we get into the real, first let me tell our audience about your credentials. Many of them already know who you are, but for those of you who have just joined the news bandwagon, Nirupama is the National Editor, Strategic Affairs with the Indian Express. You, I'm sure, have read and heard of things about that she has done and written. She writes on India's foreign policy and national security. She has been a foreign correspondent for The Hindu as well, in Sri Lanka and in Pakistan. She began working as a journalist in 1986, so she is what we call a veteran. But Nirupama, I must tell you this. When we were in Chennai shooting for a show, I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, my anchor, who tends to sweat a lot, we had to carry 3-4 shirts because once we'd get out of the car, before he had done 2 takes, he only had to say 6 lines. But by the
That's his problem if he tends to sweat a lot.
It's not the weather.
because Chennai had Delhi's temperature and Bombay's humidity. And the guy could not finish a line
Correct.
without his shirt becoming wet. I was like, boss, how can you be anchoring with a wet shirt? But we will come to talking about national security, which is Nirupama's actually core area of expertise among strategic affairs as well. And something significant has happened in the last week with the China border. And we have had all sorts of reports and issues being raised even in Parliament. But before we get to the discussion, Manisha will get us the headlines. Manisha, please do the
Manisha.
honor.
Manisha.
I said Manisha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to say Manik Show? Okay. The big news this week was the clash between the Indian and Chinese army in the Yangtze area in Arunachal Pradesh's Tawang sector. The clash occurred in the early hours of December 9th and was first reported by the newspaper Tribune. The Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made a statement on December 13. He said Chinese troops tried to alter the LAC, but their attempts were thwarted by quick action by the forces and that injuries were reported on both sides. The opposition has demanded a discussion on the clash in Parliament. Sonia Gandhi, along with Congress and TMC lawmakers, walked out of the House, accusing the government of not allowing a discussion on the sensitive India-China border issue. A report by the United States-based digital forensic firm has said that a hacker planted evidence on a device owned by tribal rights activist Stan Swamy, who is accused of involvement in the Bhima Koregaon violence case. Swamy, of course, died in custody at a Mumbai hospital in July last year. And hours after this report came out, several politicians, academics, activists, and social organizations denounced the incident and described it as a blot on the justice system.
And this is really shocking.
Yeah.
And I think it's got away with barely a ripple. It's caused nothing much than a few.
And I remember at that time, this whole plot to kill PM and all these things were all over the news.
There were 40 instances of, plotting. 40.
A murder case was filed against 7 CBI officials on Tuesday, a day after one of the prime accused persons in the West Bengal Birbhum violence case was found dead while he was in the central agency's custody. The Calcutta High Court on Wednesday told the West Bengal Criminal Investigation Department not to take coercive action against officials. The toll in the spurious liquor tragedy in Bihar's Saran district rose to 39. There was a lot of commotion in the Bihar Assembly over this. Nitish lost his cool because the BJP was questioning him and he said, "Tum sab sharabi ho gaye ho." He also said that he's not going to give any compensation because if you drink, you'll die, because there's prohibition in Bihar. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar told the UN Security Council on Wednesday in response to Pakistan talking about J&K. He said that a country that has hosted Al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden and attacked its neighbor's parliament cannot give sermons in the United Nations. The ED maintains no records on the number of cases it registers against MPs and MLAs. That's what the central government told the Lok Sabha on Monday during the ongoing winter session of parliament. Meanwhile, former Reserve Bank of India Governor Raghuram Rajan on Wednesday joined Congress MP Rahul Gandhi in his party's Bharat Jodo Yatra in Rajasthan. Raghuram Rajan has said he believes the country will be lucky if it achieves 5% growth next year. Madhya Pradesh Congress leader Raja Pateria was arrested on Tuesday morning, a day after a video of him urging people to kill Prime Minister Modi to save the constitution was shared widely on social media.
In fact, the other news from Madhya Pradesh you might as well put here. The Home Minister of Madhya Pradesh.
Oh yeah.
Something Mishra.
He's
Narottam Mishra? What's his name?
Narottam Mishra. Very upset with Deepika's Bhagwa bikini.
Unless they change that song sequence, he says we will see whether the film will be allowed to be released here or not.
It's made with a dirty mindset, he said. Over 1.83 lakh Indians have renounced their citizenship between January and October. This is up to 20,000 from 1.63 lakh in 2021. So a lot of people quitting India, even though
the Quit India movement is on a big way.
Given the size of the population, that doesn't seem like
a lot.
Too big a number. Yeah.
It's just gone up. But that's also possibly after COVID.
It's not that big a number, not because of any other reason, because it's not so easy to get citizenship. If it was a free for all, that number would be 100 times. So let's be clear about why that's not such a big number.
Raise your hand if you want to be the US.
The centre on Tuesday told Parliament that out of 5.54 lakh prisoners in the country at the end of 2021, 4.27 lakh or 77.1 were awaiting trial. The TMC MP Mahua Moitra on Tuesday took a dig at the centre over its handling of the economy and the BJP's Himachal Pradesh Assembly election defeat, asking who is the Pappu now.
Yeah, I saw that and that was quite a remarkable speech.
This government has us believe every February that this country's economy is going great guns. We are the fastest growing, most efficient global player. Everyone is getting employment. We're getting gas cylinders. We're getting electricity. We're getting pakka houses. This falsehood flies for about 8 to 10 months, and then the truth comes limping after it. And now we are in December, and the government says it needs another 3.26 lakh crores of additional funds over and above the budget estimate. The government and the ruling party coined the term Pappu. You use it to denigrate, to signify extreme incompetence. Let me use the next few minutes to point out what the data, the statistics tell us as to who the actual Pappu really is.
Rashtriya Janata Dal MLA Tejasvi Yadav will lead the Mahagathbandhan or the Grand Alliance in the 2025 Bihar Assembly elections.
Good luck to them.
Women's organization including Puna's Stree Mukti Andolan Samiti have lashed out against a panel set up by the Maharashtra government to gather detailed information on interfaith and intercaste marriage. This is just a ghastly panel.
Yeah, we shall discuss it a little more. I think people should know where we are going with this.
Meanwhile, Kerala Assembly on Tuesday passed the University Law Amendment Bill to replace Governor Arif Mohammed Khan as the Chancellor of universities in the state. India's retail inflation came down to 5.88% in November from 6.77% in October. So some good news, some relief. The Aviation Ministry on Tuesday has asked airlines to deploy adequate staff at check-in and baggage drop counters amid major complaints of crowding and congestion at the Delhi airport. In fact, I think Indigo was saying, please come 3 hours before
3.5 hours
for a domestic flight. And then there was a surprise visit also by Jyotiraditya Sandhya. Iranian footballer Amir Reza Nasser Azdadani has been sentenced to death after he was arrested last month for joining nationwide protests against the country's clerical establishment. FIFA update: France will play against Argentina in 2022 World Cup final after they defeated Morocco 2-0 on Wednesday. That's very sad. I was rooting for Morocco.
Well, we'll talk about that. But first, let's get to the main story of the week, which is the skirmish at the border.
It's completely under the control of the army, and you can't just wander in there. So it is now up to them whether to give that access. And we have seen that in 2.5 years, they have not allowed anybody access to the forward areas in Ladakh, or even if not the forward areas. Earlier, they were not allowing people even to go to Pangong Tso, even the tourist side of Pangong Tso. But now I believe that is allowed. But when journalists go, they want informed opinions. I mean, they're not tourists. They don't go there, see it, gape at things and come back. They need to interact with people. They need to interact with army. So all that has proved to be very, very tough. What is the issue really then, if nothing has happened? So truth has a way of coming out. I personally believe that in this area, in Tawang, I think the soldiers from the Chinese side came. There was a confrontation. There was an all-out fight by both sides, and I think the Chinese were either they left or they were driven out because of the response.
Maa Behan ki galis of the Sikhs.
No,
But that's an old
don't
video.
think, if you're referring to that particular video
That's
that's
last
doing the
year's.
rounds, in which, so you can't see any signs of winter in it,
Right.
really. I mean, you can't. That area is apparently snowbound, and it's high terrain. That you didn't see in the video in which they were giving Maa Behan ki gali. So probably they do. I think it was, in a sense, representative of what happens at these encounters. Probably worse happens. In that sense, it may be close to accurate. You have to be, I think, really exercise extreme caution when you put out something like this. And until there is an official saying, even on deep background, ke haan hua hai, it's damn tough to make that call to go ahead and put out. I think what turned the tables really on Monday was the fact that at about 1:00 there was a tweet by an affected party, meaning a guy whose relative had been injured in that clash, and he tagged a lot of people. He tagged an actor. He tagged Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, I missed this.
He tagged many people. He tagged some anchors in his area, and I think that really got things moving, because then you saw at about 5:00 the first stories coming out online by the Tribune and by the Hindu.
What was his tweet about, if I may ask? Like, what did he tweet? This person whose family
He's
member was
deleted
injured?
it, so I don't want to go on about this, because maybe he's scared as well about his identity and all that. So he's deleted it. But yeah, he did put out that tweet, and I think immediately a lot of journalists became very alert.
In this particular sector, the Indian Army actually is in a position of strength because they hold key positions, sort of a vantage point from where they can see if there are Chinese incursions. So it was easier for them to kind of push back in time, which then is all the more confusing for why the government took so long. Because if you push them back, and if you were indeed in a position of strength, which by all accounts it seems like we were in this particular sector, not like Ladakh, then you should have just simply issued a statement on December 10th that this has happened and this is how we reacted. I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand this lag and reluctance to.
Plus, if we go by the numbers that are floating around, 200 Chinese soldiers, 300 Chinese soldiers, 600 Chinese soldiers. So if it's 600, then it's a lot of soldiers. So that is serious. Then they obviously came with intent, because the routine stuff that happens is only 15-20 guys on either side. Those are patrols. This is something else, to come in the middle of the night.
That is like the equivalent of like a Chandigarh Sector 18
Do we
they
know
say?
what could have
Shoulder ho
provoked
gaya.
this? Like, what provoked this current? Because there's been talks happening at Ladakh. There was news of disengagement early last month. So
No, so I mean, one doesn't know for certain, and it's difficult to put any certain causality to any of this because we can't we don't really know exactly what's going on the other side, whether it was a local response to something, whether it was a local act of provocation. So it could be that, or it could be more macro. It could be so we can only think of what has happened in the recent days.
I'm guessing it's a phenomenon the world over, that especially when things are getting more tribal and more polarized. I mean, I've forgotten that lady's name, the New York Times journalist who also served a prison term. When she was an embedded journalist for the New York Times, and she wrote about the weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
It'll just come to me. I forget her name.
Not Judy Miller, right?
Judy Miller, correct.
Judith Miller. Yeah.
Judith Miller,
Judith
correct.
Miller.
She was, because she lied, no?
She served.
Not for a good cause.
No, but she served prison for a good cause because she refused to give her source away.
There's a movie made about that, right?
But how does a correspondent negotiate your way through stuff that is genuinely in national interest, irrespective of which government is in power, whether you like it or not, and reporting what is the truth?
So I wouldn't say it's just restricted to this particular situation. It's across the board. The Prime Minister has not had a press conference, so you know what he thinks of the media. And if the Prime Minister thinks that, then that kind of travels all the way down. There's a trickle-down effect to everybody. So people do think that they can have this one-way communication where no questions are asked. So you had the Defense Minister also making a statement in Parliament and no discussion allowed. So, I mean, a lot of people are doing that they just make statements and they walk off without taking any questions.
Everyone has their own domestic compulsions, so things can get more and more complicated. But I think the role of the media has to be very clear. And that is the one biggest casualty, I think, in India with the television, because it is the loudest. You see, while I get a lot of print, stories do significant work, but the kind of impact it makes on public minds is the noise that you see on prime time.
Absolutely.
And that is devoid of any sort of journalistic rigor or journalistic conduct or any of that. So that is unfortunate.
No rigors.
What I find strange is even responsible newspapers describe Kobat Gandhi as Maoist ideologue. Now, he has been exonerated by the highest court in the land. He spent 7 years in prison. In my interview and interaction with him and his other two batchmates, which you can watch, he wore this whole thing quite lightly about having spent 7 years fighting cases and spent in jail. And he was saying, oh, this jail was very bad. Tihar was not bad. It's quite comfortable. He mentioned two others, I think, I forget which states. And he said, no, most people were nice in jail, the jailers, etc. It's all okay. And he was quite not bitter about having spent 7.5 years in prison for doing nothing. But people who have spent nothing doing everything horrible, I find are more bitter and angry than this man who has spent almost a decade inside for nothing. This was bizarre. I think this is a story that should be written with humor and irony.
These are the kind of Orwellian terms that the so-called security state, not just here, everywhere uses. So because then you can basically criminalize a person without them committing a crime. What does a Maoist ideologue mean, basically? It's a very nebulous term. You can impute any meaning you want to it.
Yeah.
Ho gaya Maoist ideologue, band kar do. Even if he writes like, say, revolutionary poetry, Maoist ideologue, like Vara Rao, for example.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's the same as Naxal sympathizer, urban Naxal. Kashmir mein, it's like terrorist sympathizer. Kya hota hai bhai? If, for example, in आपके घर में कोई, like say, is a militant, so what the hell are you supposed to do?
Now,
not sympathize.
Now
Vague
situation
terms.
is more dangerous because nation, country, and the government they're becoming one entity. So if you write any revolutionary politics or you write anything against the government, you're anti-national.
Yeah, correct.
So nobody's asked the state to do this. Marriages are happening between the adults. I mean, both the man and then the woman have to be adult to get married. But the state has decided that we'll contact them. We'll gather all their information through state registrar. Just imagine.
And this is not...
track interfaith. And you know what happens? The counselors will be Bajrang Dal people who will say that आप चलो सुलह कर लो वापस आ जाओ हिंदू से शादी कर लो मुस्लिम लड़के को छोड़ दो.
No, and not just interreligion, caste also.
Yeah,
caste also.
So I don't understand. So their vision of India is not just free of other religions. It is also back to Manusmriti caste prescribed. Like what is it? And this causes very little outrage.
This is something that the Supreme Court should take note of, suo motu note.
Suo motu.
They can, because this is against your fundamental rights.
So
Right
Haryana used to have these kind of helplines because the Khap, there'd been, now actually you don't hear much of these honor killings, right? Earlier you'd have instances of a lot of murders. But Babli, there was this famous case of this woman called Babli and Manoj. So you would have helplines where couples who are fleeing the Khap or their parents can, contact, get shelter, get married. So I understand that if you want to track but the thing to do is not track intercaste marriages. You just register your presence and become shelter and people can come and stay there. But the moment, so I'm not very worried about intercaste because I do think in the Hindutva imagination, the enemy is the Muslim, and I don't think they're going to do much with intercaste marriages. But I think it's the interfaith marriages where they will really go after couples, especially if the man is Muslim.
Something similar happened in UP, right? When they had that vague law about you have to put this up and then they'd call
conversion,
them
the anti-conversion
So
law.
Richa Chadda, she has recently married to a Muslim. So let us see.
Also about a decade my junior from school.
Okay.
So the idea is, I was talking to somebody the other day about NRC and CA. It's not going to be possible. Everybody knows, like say, for example, they go ahead with say CA, NRC, and there are like say 50 million people. Who's going to deport them and to where?
Right.
That's not going to happen. Everybody knows that, right? It's the same with this. They're not going to track every marriage. They're not going to like go to every girl's house and everything. But the idea is that when it's there, you're already scared. It works like censorship.
All of you listening in, the Chhota Hafta, do subscribe so you can listen to the entire Hafta. We will see you again next week with the Hafta. Till then, subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sun liya Afrika, mufat khoro. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.